Skirk really does represent what comes next after Teyvat is wrapped up. Our war with Celestia and the Heavenly Principles. We always knew there were other worlds out there, but now we have a character with a legit tragic story from a completely different planet, supernatural powers that exceed Teyvat, and the unlimited potential of humanity. Why the Heavenly Principles had us trapped here to begin with, because it doesn't matter if Teyvat is a prison or a safe haven, or a bit of both. The potential of humanity cannot be contained. Not forever. So in this video, I want to talk about the tragic story, the lore of Skirk, her master Surtalogi, and who potentially wreaked havoc on Skirk's homeworld. I've already gotten a ton of comments from a lot of you talking about the IPC, which is interesting. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that in this video. But before we can talk about that and even Skirk, we have to talk about her master, Surtalogi the Foul. Because the 5 sinners and Conria by extension do represent the pinnacle of humanity and their potential to exceed the boundaries of Teyvat. The 5 sinners specifically have desires that exceed this world, which is why they're sinners. For Dainslift's older brother, the Visionary, he's a prophet that can even foresee things beyond Teyvat's borders. He was even able to see Surtalogi gaining a disciple in the future, which he did. Then we have Rhine-daughter, Albedo's master, with a desire to create life, basically play God, which is obviously another huge sin. Now becoming one with the shade of life, Nabarius. Her ambition is ultimate creation of life, but then there's Surtalogi. What he strives for is power, with a purpose, with a desire to exceed Teyvat with limitless heights and power, to eventually fight somebody that can make him go all out. Surtalogi was born in a prison to criminals who were sentenced to death, spending time wandering the streets and facing criticism wherever he'd go. He and Dainslift were both then students to their teacher Hayden, under whom they learned the Black Serpent blade work. Surtalogi once inspired to follow the code of knighthood, but was punished for doing so, which explains a lot about his current behavior and his mentality. He even lost various limbs as punishment. Since then, Surtalogi has transcended Teyvat, left its borders, even gaining a pet that can swallow entire worlds, the all-devouring narwhal. Don't worry, we'll talk about that too. And since then has gained the power of the Abyss and learned to control and harness it, even mastering it. And ever since the Cataclysm, Surtalogi has been traveling across the universe in search of an opponent that can best him. He has encountered many enemies along the way, some that even amassed great armies and resources to try to defeat him, but they were crushed without him even going all out. It's hard to say for sure, but at this point Surtalogi can contest the Heavenly Principles for how strong they are. Basically sounds like an Emanator level power within the universe. And this was his main driving force to find, save, and then train Skirk, hoping that one day she will surpass him and grant him the battle he wishes for. We get this very sad flashback training montage where he's very hard on her. Despite how she is and her demeanor when we meet her, this is not the life she wanted. And you can see little snippets of that come out, like her playing the guitar, reminiscing about her homeworld. Even her conversation with Alice when she first touched down in Teyvat. Of course, Alice would pick up on that right away. Alice even suggests that it's good to take time for yourself once in a while, your own self-maintenance. Skirk is in 100% survival mode, never able to relax, breathe easy, take a minute for herself, grow attached to anything, enjoy anything, because at the end of the day, her life has an expiry date. I know that's true for every living being, but for Skirk, it's much more serious, with a much shorter expiration date, and it's not just Skirk's life that hangs in the balance, but everything that she grows attached to and loves. Surtalogi's actually counting on her making new relationships and friends. The more she gains, the more she has to lose when he finally returns to kill her and take it all away. And this is a big reason why he selected Skirk. She has lost everything. She knows fear now. He has personally trained her, and now she has all the tools, as well as that lingering doom, to try to push her to become stronger. And make no mistake, Skirk is a powerful, powerful warrior, especially for Teyvat standards, but again, this is not who she is and the life she truly wanted. When we first run into her, she's cold and calculated, she's practical. She is, by definition, the perfect warrior. She has learned and mastered to block out her emotions, suppressing her childhood and feelings, her ambitions, her desires. Despite her having a very soft spot for child, refuses to have any contact with him because this could expose her soft side and weaken her. Surtalogi is not an evil character, he's not a bad character, but he's not a good character either. He simply just follows his selfish desires, something that humans in Teyvat are not allowed to do, so it's hard to blame the guy. He doesn't care about Teyvat. He has no desire about this world anymore or no interest. He even offered to remove the curse of immortality from one of his friends, trying to pursue the same things that he is. Because at the end of the day, Teyvat as a world holds you back as a human. That's what it's designed to do. Even his homeworld Conria, why would he stay and fight or why would he care? Born in prison and scrutinized his entire life, tried to be a knight and uphold the knight's code of chivalry, but he was punished for it, even lost limbs. At this point, why would he care about Teyvat? All he cares about now is getting stronger and fighting stronger opponents, and by the sounds of it, he's destroyed entire worlds and their civilizations just to find a strong enough opponent that can make him go all out. It kinda makes you wonder why he wouldn't just go scrap with the heavenly principles just to see. Maybe they're strong enough to give you the fight that you want. Or maybe he's an Emanator level power at this point or close to it, where it's not even worth it anymore. It's hard to say for sure. But he seems to think Skirk is the one to do it, and that's where we get into Skirk's backstory. Which, to say Skirk's story is tragic is an understatement. But at the same time, Skirk's backstory paints a picture of what Teyvat could suffer if the Heavenly Principles wasn't doing what they're doing, keeping it safe, keeping humans, their ambitions, their literal fates and memories all contained within the ley lines, Irminsul, and the false sky, the stars. The fake skies and stars Skirk actually references and is aware of because she's been in Teyvat for so long now. Just a visitor here to train on her master's home world. Skirk lived on a faraway planet with her parents, and from the sounds of it, her homeworld was much more advanced. They even had education systems and schools, but they sounded like two trusting and friendly people. Skirk had a habit of skipping school and just wanting to know what's beyond the stars, even in her own homeworld. She was curious about things, and at heart she was just a playful kid that wanted to adventure. These mysterious people that posed as friendly merchants then attacked, and basically extinguished all life on her world except her. She had to watch her homeworld, her entire planet, and all the people she knew and loved be burned and destroyed, slaughtered. As the only survivor, she lives with this guilt, and then was trained by Surtalogi, not only teaching her to be the perfect warrior, but how to suppress her feelings and emotions, all that grief and anger, to just drown it out. Her inner child, suppress it, bury it. Become cold and calculated and only do what's practical. But deep down, Skirk lives with this lingering fear because Surtalogi knows that fear is the only way to truly push yourself. One day I will come and kill you and everything that you love, forcing Skirk to have no choice but to train and become stronger. When Surtalogi finally challenges her, it's going to be for her life. So deep down she's terrified of what's to come, and also terrified to make relationships, which is why she pushes people away. They really go out of their way in this story to tell us that Skirk knew that we were here the minute we landed back in 1.0. She saw our drawing in the sand, and we were the only person that she could truly relate to. She wanted to make contact with us and potentially make friends with us, but if she were to do that, and then afterwards, after training Tartaglia, her own disciple, if she were to grow too attached to him, they become targets for Surtalogi someday. She is incredibly fond of Tartaglia. She was a bit cold while training him, but at the end of the day, she looked after him. She taught Child how to defend himself, how to protect himself, and now he's one of the strongest people in Teyvat, outside of gods, Fatui harbingers, and powerful long-life species. If she gets too close to Child and us and makes friends in Teyvat, learns to love this world and treat it like a second home, she could lose it all again. Suppressing her inner desires in childhood is the only way she saw to do this. That's why it was nice in her story quest, we were able to get her to see that you gotta live in the moment. You can't abandon who you are and what you were before. Skirk grew up a lot like Child, had loving parents, and love in her heart, but it's constantly been ripped away ever since her homeworld was destroyed. And it was bittersweet at the end of the quest we could get her to rekindle with her lost childhood and dreams, her ambitions, her desires, the things that brought joy to her life, not just being in a constant fight-or-flight mode. But that's what I find interesting about her entire story quest and the potential stories that could come from it. Surtalogi has now been introduced to the story and lore as an individual powerful enough to threaten Teyvat in the future. I'm pretty sure that's what they're going for with this. And after Teyvat's main story is wrapped up with the Heavenly Principles and Celestia, where do we go from here? Future storylines? Other worlds? Well, they kinda set a nice story up right here, where Surtalogi will eventually return to wreak havoc and set fire and ash to everything Skirk holds dear, including her own life. Which is actually so fitting because Surtalogi is named after Surtur from Norse mythology. He's a great enemy to Thor and all of Asgard. He's the reckoning, he's the doom. And that is kind of what they built him up to be here as well when he eventually returns. To both figuratively and literally bring Ragnarok to Skirk and everything she holds dear. So I think this perfectly sets up some future storylines, but how exactly are they going to beat somebody this powerful? That's what I find interesting, and I have a theory. Like I talked about a lot in this video, Skirk is this powerful out of necessity, but she's held back because of her own fears, and this being more of a need than a want. She's limited because she does this out of complete fear of her master. The truth is, I don't really think she's the best candidate to beat Surtalogi, or at least be the main person to try to do this. Obviously, I think the entire theme around Genshin Impact is teamwork, making friends and roots in Teyvat so you don't have to fight them alone. But I actually think there's one person that's perfectly suited to do exactly what Surtalogi wants. Become strong enough to be a challenge for him. And that person, ironically, is not Skirk, but Child. And I personally think that would be the best way to conclude this whole story with Skirk and her master. Think about it. We know it can only end one of two ways, and eventually he will return. They're not going to write all this in the story and just not follow up with it. But what have we learned about Child this entire time? He fell into the abyss at a young age, was trained by Skirk for 3 months, and became one of the most powerful people in Teyvat with a cool transformation. Now we know where it stems from because his transformation's called the Fowl's Legacy. Surtalogi's nickname is the Fowl. Child is the weakest harbinger with the least experience by far. But could you imagine if he had the experience his colleagues did? Child doesn't have 500 plus years of experience, and he's already a professional at every single weapon type except for the bow. Once he masters the bow, Skirk's gonna initiate his second phase of training, and he's already crazy strong. But more importantly, Child has the perfect mindset, because Child is kind of like Goku. All he cares about is fighting stronger opponents than him. He could care less about beating down people he knows he can beat already. He wants to fight people that are strong, have a great reputation, but also people he doesn't stand a chance against. And unlike Surtalogi, who is discriminated against and had a rough go in his early years, and Skirk, well, we know she had a rough go in her early years, Child hasn't, for the most part, not yet anyway. He still has loving parents, siblings, and a lot to fight for, but he still has love and playfulness in his heart. He's a flawed but good person, and isn't driven by rage and endless grief. Again, he's a lot like Goku, with an endless desire and thirst to get stronger. Who Child is fundamentally as a person is perfectly geared to be the person to challenge Surtalogi, reach heights that no one's been able to do to challenge him. He is perfectly wired to do this in every conceivable way. And I've been saying for years now that despite Child being the weakest harbinger, he has the highest ceiling and potential to become the strongest. I guarantee you that Child at his young teenage age was stronger than Surtalogi was at the same age that he was. I can't say that for sure because I was not in Conria, believe it or not, 500 years ago. But with his transformation, his Hydro Vision, and his Electro Delusion, I would be surprised otherwise. He also knows every weapon type. He has fought a Descender, which is us, sparred with his colleagues. He got beat up in Fontaine, but by the Hydro fricking Sovereign, some of the most powerful beings in Teyvat's history, the OG Dragon Sovereigns, and then he fought the all-devouring Narwhal, a being that can consume worlds. For a teenager, that's a phenomenal resume. And I just think that would be the perfect end to this whole saga with Skirk and her master when he finally does return for Ragnarok, rather than her spend her time training despite her not really wanting to deep down, suppressing those emotions for years. She's actually able to find somebody better suited for it, somebody that would relish this challenge and revel in it. Her own disciple, Child. But rather than train him to the point of exhaustion and misery, she takes a different approach, She's hard on him, but she cares for him. And Child would love nothing more to impress his master and rise to those heights of strength. So maybe Child is the main person that fights Surtalogi, but with all of our help, having the full force of Teyvat backing him and Skirk in his corner, allowing then for Skirk to pursue other passions and dreams, going back to her music. She loves to play the guitar and her dad used to sing to her. Make some new friends in Teyvat, explore other worlds. If there's one reoccurring thing about this game and the theme around it, it's making friends along the way. The Traveler has endless allies in Teyvat already from every nation we've been to. That's the difference between the Traveler and Skirk. She's avoided making contact with anyone there, making friends, making roots and connections. That's all we've done though. So maybe at the end of the day, it all comes down to helping Skirk overcome her fears and defeat her master, the Fowl. The introduction of Skirk and her story quest was so interesting right now in Genshin because it's clear she knows so much about Teyvat's history, how it functions. She knows about the false sky, the false stars. She's also very familiar with how Teyvat works. You know, dead god remains seeping into the earth. How power like that just can't disappear, it has to go somewhere. Hinting towards our power to even absorb abyssal corruption, like where does it go? Power doesn't just disappear. You can't siphon it from somewhere and it not go somewhere else. It doesn't just dissipate. Hinting towards a future conundrum that the Traveler might actually have with their abyssal absorbing powers. But it also spawns a lot of potential theories on what's actually out there. Where does Teyvat as a world connect to in all these other worlds? These other individuals? Now that we know there's lots out there. Surtalogi has fought many different worlds and powerful beings and beat them all. Skirk's from a remote planet out there somewhere too. So what exactly is out there? The more simple option could be that Teyvat is connected to these unknown worlds, not connected to the other games. So all these other powerful individuals, worlds, are just that, random planets and worlds with their own militaries. This mysterious army of invaders that killed Skirk's homeworld are just simply randoms that we don't know yet. Maybe that's what the game will explore after Teyvat ends. Everything we know outside Teyvat is just unknown at this point, not connected to the other games, but where's the fun in that? What's the point of having the Hoyoverse and all these interesting games and stories if you can't interconnect them at the end of the day? Starting with Surtalogi's pet, the all-devouring narwhal, which one for one sounds identical to the Leviathans, powerful creatures that devour worlds that follow Ouroboros, the Eon of Veracity or Gluttony. The all-devouring narwhal is also alien to Teyvat, and according to Skirk in her own story quest, was in a weakened state even when we fought it. Apparently it has the potential to swallow worlds, and could do that to Teyvat, which perfectly checks out with the Leviathans from Honkai Star Rail. And if that's the case, it just puts into perspective how powerful Surtalogi is if he made one of these as pets. It also adds for some interesting theories as to where in the timeline Teyvat takes place among the Honkai Star Rail universe if they're connected. Which brings us to Skirk's homeworld. Who on earth attacked it? The people that destroyed Skirk's homeworld sound identical to the IPC in Honkai Star Rail. That's one potential option and the one I want to talk about in this video. Of course, the other options are just unknown people, unknown militaries from worlds we don't know. And if that's the case, there's not much to speculate on. It just is what it is. We gotta wait till Teyvat's over and we explore outside Teyvat. But what exactly is the IPC? The IPC is short for the Interastral Peace Corporation. They are basically an intergalactic megacorporation responsible for the economy of the entire cosmos. And with the economy, much of the laws, regulations, they're essentially like the biggest, baddest, richest corporation in the entire cosmos, like the BlackRock of the universe, the big, rich elites. And just like a big, corrupt, rich, elite corporation, they have their board members and then the chain of command. And much like a rich corporation in our own real world, they function very similar where they do things in the name of good, progress, expansion, fair trade, but they do a lot of shady things for money, resources, the rich higher-ups pulling the strings. At face value, the IPC will come to your homeworld, try to help you out. If you're a struggling planet with no food or resources, they'll help you. Uphold laws and the currency within the cosmos to keep everything in order. But we know this is a farce. The IPC targets struggling planets and coerces them into giving their resources. They strong-arm people into signing deals, basically signing over your planet to them. If you actually look at the people that attacked Skirk's homeworld, it sounds and looks exactly like the IPC, or at least people that work for them. Because yeah, the IPC's even been known to hire mercenaries and bandits to try to do things in a certain way that benefits them. The IPC likes to keep their good reputation, but if they need to hire bandits or mercenaries to kill certain people on a planet in order to get what they want, they will. And they've done this before. During the Swarm disaster they did this, which helped cause the rise of Tazeroth, the Eon of Propagation, which led to one of the biggest universe-wide wars and catastrophes. One of the Stonehearts named Topaz, her homeworld was struggling with toxins. They needed help from a big corporation. So the IPC stepped in and saved her world. But the only condition was, her world had to sign their rights over to the IPC. And by extension, everyone on her homeworld now was an employee of the IPC, and they had no choice. That was the price to pay for survival and salvation and, well, freedom. But it's not really free, is it? Yes, you have the potential to rise the ranks if you're a good employee, follow the rules, but if you fail in your duties, there's severe consequences like we've seen. They will bring their troops to try to intimidate planets, especially struggling ones with good resources. Aventurine's a pretty high-ranking person within the IPC that has a literal barcode on his neck because he's a slave. He's high-ranked because he's good at getting the job done, coercing planets into doing what the IPC wants. He has no choice but to do this though, even though he's high-ranked. Taken in as a slave after his homeworld was also conquered by the IPC. Then there's a character like Boothill. Long story short, he was an orphan, but he grew up in an orphanage that was a farmstead with other orphan kids that were basically like his siblings growing up. So despite losing his real parents early on, he had a nice childhood with his adoptive brothers and sisters and his adoptive parents. And the world that he lived on was very lush green, full of natural resources, crops, food, clear skies. Boothill learned how to ride a horse at a young age, shoot a gun, farm cattle. He was basically a cowboy on his home world. And they weren't the most advanced world out there either. But the IPC showed up and annihilated everything and took control of his homeworld. They rained fire down from their huge ship in the sky, killing millions, and killing his adoptive parents and siblings. Boothill then swore revenge on the IPC and the board member responsible as Waldo Schneider. Boothill then turned himself into a cyborg, enhancing his power and abilities to just get revenge on Oswaldo Schneider and the IPC. But if you actually look at how Skirk's homeworld was taken over, how these mysterious merchants wiggled in there and then all of a sudden attacked when they felt the need to, it fits the IPC MO perfectly, and not just that. Just the way they attack too, it's not malicious like monsters, it's people, strategically with superior officers and ranks. This is exactly how the IPC functions. They have many divisions, resources throughout the universe, militaries, armies, ships, weapons, soldiers, but they have a chain of command, which is exactly how Skirk's homeworld got taken over. This could be the beginnings of connecting these two games. Maybe this is a division within the IPC or somebody they hire to take Skirk's homeworld for its resources, but also saw Skirk's people as a potential threat. Maybe they had a secret potential or power within them. Overall, it's fun to talk about because the IPC fits the bill for the people that attack Skirk's homeworld. This is just a possibility though, we don't know that these games are connected for sure yet. Could just be randoms throughout the cosmos that we just haven't met yet, like I said. But it opens the door for a lot of possibilities now. We know there's other worlds out there now, and eventually we are going to explore them. We are not going to stay on Teyvat forever. But nevertheless, now that we know more about Skirk, her master, it's going to be interesting how this story unravels, and how they go about introducing new threats outside the false sky once we get to that point. But by all means, let me know your thoughts in the comments about Skirk, her master, how you see their stories developing, and what you think potentially happened to Skirk's homeworld. Now that Skirk was able to reconnect with her inner child, I think we'll get to learn a lot more about her homeworld and what it was like, what other worlds are like, and get to see Skirk actually plant some roots in Teyvat and start a new life as her second home. And unlike her homeworld where she was just a kid and defenseless, when the external threats come, we can all fight them together. That is, at the end of the day, what the endgame is here with Teyvat. It's like Skirk said herself, eventually we're gonna have to adapt. to what's outside the false sky. You can't keep them bubbled forever. The false sky and people's sealed fates will eventually fall. Hope you enjoyed the video though. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.